So, as you know, the Diddy trial is coming to a close. We're going to hear closing arguments in the next day or so. I believe they're going to be today, but as far as I know, they're going to be happening today. So we'll get into that in a later video. But there are some insights that we want to look into as to what the actual charges are in this Diddy case and what's going to be happening moving forward. So I wanted to go to this amazing video posted over on X by the Honorable Doug Weinstein. Y'all may remember him from the YSL trial, and he had some insight into this whole RICO situation, as Doug is very familiar with that from his first criminal trial he had. And he's going to talk about what we're looking at in the case of Diddy and this RICO. Let's go.
Speaking of the Sean Combs case, you know, for the RICO charge to hold up against Sean Combs, the government has to show that there is an enterprise. Without an enterprise, you have no RICO. So the government has been attempting to demonstrate that Sean Combs's illegal enterprise was a web of his businesses, his employees, etc. And I think you will see the defense attorneys constantly going back to this Boyle v. U.S. case, 556 U.S. 938, which says that when the government is trying to prove an enterprise through an association in fact, in other words, not a formal business enterprise, but one that comes together for this alleged criminal activity, there has to be some structure to that. That is what our Supreme Court has said. There has to be some structure. And what do you need to have a structure under RICO? Well, the structure has to have certain features. It needs to have a purpose. There needs to be a relationship amongst those associated with the enterprise, and longevity sufficient to permit the associates to accomplish the purpose of the enterprise. And one of the things you see in the Sean Combs case is, I think they're having a lot of trouble not only proving conspiracy to commit two predicate acts amongst alleged members of this alleged association, this enterprise, but I think they're having trouble showing even the existence of an enterprise. And
yeah, not to mention, again, ClassE admitted to being a part of and a willing participant of some of the, I guess we would call them overt acts mentioned in this RICO. ClassE was a part of it. She was involved. She even set some of them up. She asked for it. And that seems to be the biggest issue here in a lot of this. And the same goes for other people mentioned in this RICO as well.
Existence of an enterprise. And in particular, that there's some type of a unified purpose of these enterprises are trying to put together. And sufficient longevity. You've got people coming in, coming out. You've got KK coming in well into the enterprise. You've got people coming in and out again all the time. So under Boyle, I don't know that they've really shown the enterprise. And no doubt they being the defense, will continue to make arguments to the jury somewhat along these lines, but hopefully in a fashion more understandable than what I have just done.
Amazing. Shout out to Doug Weinstein for that explanation, because I agree. One of the things we've been saying throughout the coverage we've done of this Diddy trial is there RICO and is there trafficking? Some of the other things, it could be questionable. But now that we're seeing some of the other charges not only be dropped, but the jury instructions being changed as it relates to certain charges like the arson, that's gone, like the aiding and abetting, that's gone, and then certain aspects of the trafficking. Now we're seeing that RICO might not even fit here. What do you guys think about this whole Diddy situation and the trial? Obviously, we think Diddy he's got a lot going on, and he wasn't right to put his hands on ClassE the way that he did. But when it comes to the RICO specifically, is that something that he should be held accountable for? And is it even real? Let's get into this video from TMZ. They're going to talk about an update that we mentioned yesterday when it comes to the charges during this Diddy RICO trial.
Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here. Charles here. So the prosecution in the Diddy case, they are winding up now, closing arguments tomorrow and Friday. The jury gets the case probably Monday. So the prosecution just filed paperwork today, actually in the form of a letter to the judge, saying that they wanted to simplify the jury instructions per the judge's instructions. And what they're doing is they're streamlining things, that there are charges alleging kidnapping, arson, that's the Kid Cudi case.
Yep.
They are alleging aiding and abetting in sex trafficking. They are slimming that all down so that they're not going to kind of overburden and overwhelm the jury.
They're saying
with instructions.
Right. They're saying that to the judge that when you give the jury their instructions, just leave out the attempted kidnapping, leave out attempted arson,
but they're
aiding
saying,
and abetting.
they're saying there's
out
still
of
actual kidnapping.
Yes.
Actual arson.
And those things, the counts, the charges still remain. They're just saying there's no reason in the jury instructions to tell them about the attempted kidnapping.
And Charles, I'll tell you why. Because
the actual
attempted means you failed or didn't go through with it. They're alleging it was gone through with, so why bother calling it an attempt as well?
Right.
Yep. So again, saving some confusion, the charges, are they dropping off or are they saying, hey, don't worry about it because he did it? That's going to be confusing. And I think it was a smart move by the prosecution to clear that up for the jury. Let's keep going.
And they're just trying to, because the jury is going to have, there are so many, because there are 4 counts there, and because one of them is a RICO count that has so many underlying alleged crimes, they just want to simplify this so that the jury, when they get their instructions, know
so legal
what to do.
Legal schmiegel. Let's talk about what really matters right
hold
now.
on. I want to say that I know what you want to get to, and we should, but this also plays into that because this is going to be a very complicated thing for the jury
Super complicated.
to look at.
I agree.
And they are potentially going to be under a bit of a time crunch.
So it looks like each side is going to take a day. So tomorrow, Thursday,
closing argument.
there will be a prosecution's closing argument. Friday, the defense's closing argument.
You guys remember the last time we sat through closing arguments that took a whole day? Jeez. So how's that? I'll let them finish talking. If there's going to be a whole day of the defense closing arguments on Friday, are we going to have rebuttal that day too? Will there be no rebuttal or will we have it on Monday? This makes no sense.
And then the judge is going to give instructions to the jury, which may take a couple hours.
Because of what we just talked about.
So realistically, the jury's going to start deliberating on Monday.
Right.
So you got
they might have an hour or so late on Friday.
Or they may do it, we don't know, they may do it on Friday, depending, they may do it, but the jury's probably going to start deliberating in earnest on Monday. The reality here, folks, is that if you've talked to your friends, you know, some people say, oh, he's guilty on everything, he's guilty on nothing. I don't see the RICO charge, but I do see the Mann Act charge. So my gut tells me, and I don't try to guess juries, but they're not going to all agree right out of the gate. Yeah, so there's going to be debate and, going over evidence and talking. So Monday goes in.
Remember, there are 28 days of testimony, and they're going to go over a lot of.
No, remember, in O.J. Simpson, there was 9 months, but they came in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it really.
That was.
It really just depends. But I think Monday's going to bleed into Tuesday. And then if you get into Wednesday, there's an issue.
Now things start tightening up.
Yeah, they're really up against the clock because
that's crazy.
Friday's July 4th, Thursday's July 3rd. Do they want to come in on Thursday?
Well, Thursday the courts are closed.
Or do they want to get it done on Wednesday?
And not only that, there's a court holiday. So court is closed on July 3rd and 4th. That is Thursday and Friday. So what's the best way to get to consensus on Wednesday? The looming idea that you will be dragged into court through a skeletal staff that Judge Subramanian can say, I'm going to open up just the jury room. I'm going to have a skeletal staff come in on a holiday, and you guys are going to continue deliberating. That's going to drive consensus in that jury room to say, hey, I got plans. I want to see some fireworks. You better all get on board.
You can listen to Derek and, based on his record, say, look, he's a doofus. But in this case, he's
it's true, but we don't say it out loud like that.
In this case, he is actually right. That experientially, that when you have these 4-day holidays, it's shocking how many juries suddenly reach a consensus right before.
Suddenly I have clarity. You know what? All the 28 days of testimony, I've been seeing it crystal clear.
Well, not just that. But not just that. But you may have an 11-1 split or a 10-2 split on one of the counts. And those
pressure
two,
on those
and
holdouts.
the pressure on those two They may have family picnics. They may have family parties, whatever.
That's true.
At a point, I know that sounds trivial and crazy, but there is that kind of
It's
inert
in the back
pressure.
of their head.
Yes.
It's definitely going to be.
Yeah, and I've seen it myself. Guys, jurors are human, right? And they're thinking about all this stuff. I 1000% agree. I think if you're the defendant, you're like, man, can we not finish this up during a holiday? Can you guys maybe stretch this out a couple more days so that way the jury's not deliberating when there's a holiday? Because you don't want them to rush to a decision, especially when it's your life. But anyway, I want to know what you guys think about this. Is Diddy going to be found guilty on any of these charges, or is he going to walk free? I unfortunately think they're going to want to find him guilty of something, especially because of the nature of ClassE's testimony, the testimony they've heard from several people who have been around him. I think it's going to be hard for the jury to just say, let's let him go. But I want to know what y'all's thoughts are on that. Let me know what you think in the comments and in the chat.